Hi, I'm Dr. Walter Matwychuk, and I'd like to talk to you about how REBT, Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, is more than a psychotherapy. Although we use REBT as a cognitive behavior therapy and help people overcome modern emotional and behavioral problems, I view REBT as more than that. It's an amalgamation of ideas, a system of ideas that borrows heavily from ancient and modern philosophy. Rational emotive behavior therapy starts with the idea that the Stoic philosopher and emancipated slave Epictetus taught. That is, that events do not disturb us, but that our views of these events are at the root of disturbance. Now, rational emotive behavior therapy takes this idea and builds upon it. We teach people that they are responsible for their emotional upset, largely responsible for it. Yes, people may obstruct you, but it is our rigid and extreme attitudes that lead to our disturbance. This is a stance towards life. Now, REBT also encourages people to see that it is in their best interest to be self-reliant and independent thinkers. That in the end, it is their life and it is up to them to take responsibility for finding the path that leads to their happiness and personal meaning. We see life as an opportunity to enjoy ourselves, not prove ourselves through actions, to enjoy ourselves through meaningful and pleasurable and satisfying pursuits. In rational emotive behavior therapy, we teach people what we call the principle of enlightened self-interest. We encourage people to put themselves first and others a close second, not a distant second. The philosophy of REBT argues that it is you who is in the best position to know what you want and then to be responsible for obtaining it. Secondly, REBT encourages you to have an interest in society. So we want you to be concerned about what's happening in society, not overly anxious, but concerned, and then to do your bit to contribute to a better society, because it's in your best interest to have that occur. We encourage people to have high frustration tolerance and high discomfort tolerance as part of their philosophy of life. We recognize that although we want to maximize pleasure in life, that will only occur if we're capable of delaying gratification in the short run, or at least often will require delaying gratification in the short run. So we teach people attitudes that enable them to have poise and self-control and self-discipline. We teach people that it's important to be flexible and adaptable to the challenges of life, that life is going to require us to bend because there are some things that we can't change. In fact, we build upon the principle that the Stoics taught, which is that some things are under our control and other things are beyond our control, and teach people that their attitudes are well within their control, even when reality is beyond changing. We teach people acceptance of uncertainty. There's a great deal of uncertainty in life. We live in a probabilistic world, and we want our patients to become comfortable accepting this idea that there are no guarantees in life, virtually none. Even death is a high probability, but perhaps someday we'll figure out how to remain alive. Maybe not in my lifetime, but the point being is that we teach people that it's best to have a scientific outlook and see that we live in a world of probability where certainty doesn't exist. And we teach people how to tolerate uncertainty and take calculated risks in order for them to achieve their long-term goals. We teach people to think like scientists, logically, and to use it even when it's difficult to use, because scientific thinking is a good tool. We teach people to unconditionally accept themselves as fallible humans and to unconditionally accept other people as fallible humans. This doesn't relinquish responsibility. As a matter of fact, we hold ourselves and others accountable for our judgments, actions, and even our emotions. However, what we do is we encourage people to accept themselves and then work on changing parts of themselves that may undermine their long-term well-being. When other people misbehave in our lives, we teach our patients to unconditionally accept the other individual, but at the same time not to condemn the individual, but only to rate what they're doing and hold the person accountable for their actions. So REBT is consistent with the Judeo-Christian attitude of condemning the sin, but accepting the individual who did that sin. We encourage people to take calculated risks, to be what we call long-term hedonists, that is, to seek pleasure in the long term. We encourage people to have a healthy sense of humor. The originator of REBT often would say that emotional disturbance could be thought of as taking yourself, other people, and life too seriously or not seriously enough. And so in rational and emotive behavior therapy, we see humor as a tool, if you will, for coping with life. And it also reflects an element of self-acceptance. We encourage people to be precise in their thinking and in how they speak both to themselves and other people. Rather than to be imprecise and make statements like I'm a loser or I'm a failure, to see that a person has failed or a person has lost, but that doesn't define them as a loser. And so what we show people is that semantic precision seems to correlate very highly with emotional well-being. And so we get after our patients and clients to practice semantic precision, not in an obsessive or self-defeating way, but in a healthy way. So for example, when someone says to me, my colleague made me so angry today, I show them that that's actually imprecise. And what's more accurate is to depict what happened as follows. Their colleague did something they didn't like. Their colleague misbehaved, if you will. But then the person who responded with unhealthy anger angered themselves by holding a rigid or extreme attitude about what their colleague did. So in REBT, we teach people to make statements like, I angered myself. I'm depressing myself about the challenges I face. Now, we're not looking to teach people to blame themselves, but we're looking for hope in semantic precision. We're teaching people that by seeing that their thinking and the language they use to depict what's happening plays a profound role in their emotions, they can remain hopeful that there's something they can do to help themselves even when facing great adversity. Another one of my favorites is to remind people that although they haven't found a solution yet, it doesn't follow that there is not a solution to their problem. So actually, REBT helps people become better problem solvers because we teach them to have healthier emotional reactions to life's greatest difficulties and challenges. In rational emotive behavior therapy, we encourage people to recognize that it's important for them to maintain their physical health and use REBT to delay gratification and do things in moderation. Many philosophers taught this idea that too much or too little of anything can be self-defeating and unhealthy. And so we encourage people to maintain their physical health. They don't have to be Olympic athletes, but we encourage them to see that if they don't work on maintaining their physical health, then over the long run, there's a good probability that they may lose their health. Finally, I think it's very important that we in REBT encourage people to see that life is an opportunity to enjoy yourself. And one of the best ways to enjoy yourself is to have what we call vitally absorbing interests. Vitally absorbing interests are activities and significant human involvements that enrich our lives. Another way of putting it is it's good to have a mission in life. Now, what our mission is may be very different from one person as compared to another, or our mission, if you will, our vitally absorbing interest may change over time in life. But in the end, our goals, our mission, our vitally absorbing interests do a couple important things. They structure our days, they help us enjoy life and get meaning from it, and they actually help inoculate us from emotional disturbance, because when we have little to do or do little, if you will, we very often then think about problems, we make problems, we upset ourselves about our emotional upset, and we can go down a rabbit hole of emotional disturbance. And so in rational emotive behavior therapy, we encourage people to lean into life, to pursue goals, to experiment with new activities and do things throughout their lifespan, new things, test themselves, challenge themselves, and see that very often this is how you get the most out of life, by trying new things. I'd like to return to the philosophical idea of unconditional life acceptance. In rational emotive behavior therapy, we argue that utopias don't exist, that perfection can't be achieved, and that time is finite, which means that death is a part of life, that all of us have a finite amount of time to live out our lives. And therefore, it would be in our best interest to make good use of that time, because it's not an elastic resource. So we encourage people to see time as a very valuable resource, and at the same time to accept death and not disturb themselves about their own death and the death of others. This doesn't mean that we don't have sorrow. In fact, in rational emotive behavior therapy, we teach people that healthy negative emotions are inevitable. So emotions like disappointment, sorrow, sadness, concern, displeasure are some of the most frequently experienced emotions, because when we don't get what we want, we will feel sorrow, sadness, disappointment, or displeasure. When we consider the future and we recognize that we may someday get bad news about our health, it's appropriate to be concerned. In fact, concern motivates us to do what we can to make the most of the time we have and the health we have. So, rational emotive behavior therapy teaches people that it's very important to accept both death and the process of dying, and seeing that disturbing ourselves about these things or denying their existence in our futures probably will backfire. It's far better to accept that life is finite, that death is a part of life, and therefore to savor the life that we have, to look at the time in the past that's beyond us as being, unfortunately, behind us. And if we've wasted time, rather than dwelling on that, learning from it and using that concern or remorse we may have, or disappointment we may feel about having wasted time in the past, to help us get engaged in the present. So REBT really is a very robust system of ideas. And in my view, to view it merely as a psychotherapy is to not fully acknowledge it as what I think it really is, which is a philosophy of life. Now, when you're involved in psychotherapy with me, it doesn't mean that we're going to encourage you to adopt it as if it were a religion. In fact, we're against dogma. And so we're going to introduce these ideas to you and say to you, the consideration of these ideas and implementation may very well help you cope with some of the challenges of life. So I would encourage you to give thought to how REBT is more than cognitive behavior therapy, the pioneering form of cognitive behavior therapy, and see it as a robust system of ideas that, as you use over your lifespan, will help you solve a multitude of problems.